Alright, so what cylinder is that? 1, 2, 3. Cylinder 3, the threads aren't there. They're not existent. So, or there are threads, but they're stripped or they're cross-threaded or something like that. So I'm going to have to tap it. In a different style, if it was like the threads were completely gone, then I would have to use a helicoil, which we might still have to do if this threading doesn't work. So I'm going to try threading it first if I have a big enough thread for this, and then we'll see what happens in a second, I guess. But the other two on the ends, they go in just fine. Put some fogging oil in there, should be just fine. I'm also going to have to go to the store for that socket that will fit the harmonic balancer, and that's how you turn the engine. So, alright, so cylinder 3 on this side and cylinder 2 on this side. So the first one, the closest one to me on this side, and the one on the middle over there. The threads are just non-existent. They are cross-threaded or something like that. So what we're going to need to do is tap the holes. So this is a OEM, let's see, OEM spark plug repair kit. Comes with a tap. You guys should know how a tap works. You just screw this in and then it creates threads for you to thread stuff in. And then you have these little inserts that you thread in, and then eventually the spark plug will screw into this insert here. And that's generally how it works. You guys are going to watch me do it. It's my first time doing something like this, so anyways, I'm going to start on this side. I'm pretty sure I have enough room to get a ratchet in here just to ratchet all this stuff in. So you're going to need some WD-40 if you're doing this yourself, just to lubricate the threads. You don't want to do anything like this without lubrication. Proper lubrication goes a long way. So I'm going to try to get a good camera angle for you guys, and then I'm going to start doing it. So I tried the tool, and it's not working. So what we're going to have to do is take off the heads. That's where the spark plugs thread into. So all this is going to need to come off, and the heads are going to need to come off. So I need to use the bathroom, and then I'm going to try to get these heads off today. After a little bit of time, I've got those two heads off, as you guys can see here. Brand new engine. Anyways, so the heads are over here, and now we're going to take a deeper look into those spark plug holes and see what the real problem is. Alright, so I pretty much found the problem here. So this hole is about inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch deep, and as you guys can see, this is not very deep and there's not much threads on here. So as I put this on here, it threads in, but it only threads to that first thread right there, so it's not reaching it. There's not enough threads on here. See if I can flip around to the back so you guys can actually see it. Look at how much thread is left over. There's so much thread left over. And now you're saying, Chris, well, it shouldn't be able to go all the way down because then the piston's going to hit that. But there should be more threads than that, and that's why it's not catching. See, it's barely even going in far enough. It's not catching. I even used the repair kit, and the threads are fine. I'll show you guys in this. I'll show you guys. I get this thing. through, the threads are just fine. See, it threads in really easy and really nice. However, spark plugs just don't reach. There's just not enough thread on the spark plug. Alright guys, it's been about a week since you last saw me take off the head off the engine just to mess with the spark plugs. Kind of ridiculous. But turns out we just had wrong spark plugs. We had spark plugs for the old engine that was a stock engine. This is a different engine if you guys didn't know. This is from an 82 Grand Prix. It's a 4.1 V6 and it uses different spark plugs. We didn't know because my dad bought those old spark plugs like 20 years ago and completely slipped his mind. So I went to Rock Auto, got some spark plugs, as well as a new set of gaskets, head gaskets, valve cover gaskets, as well as a new valley pan gasket for the intake. We'll all get into installing all that stuff in a minute, but first we're going to go ahead and take off the old gasket material off the heads and the block. So let's go ahead and without further ado, let's get into it. So I have the new gaskets here. These are from Cortico, and here is the number for you guys wondering. Alright, here we go. Brand new head gaskets. So this goes between the block and the head, obviously. Here are the old ones. It's always good to compare your old versus new. So I'm just going to get this new one, set this on top, and then make sure all the holes go through. And as you guys can see, all the holes are lining up properly, and they're the same thing on each side, so I don't really have to worry about each side being different. But here's the other side. It's kind of a metal with this gasket material. It's kind of like a rubber paper feel. I don't know if you guys never felt it. That's kind of what it feels like. And here's a new one. It kind of has a tackier feel. Kind of needs to stick. I will be using a little bit of RTV right here, right in the corners right here where the little seal meets the top, just to prevent some leakage. I'll do it in all four corners of the engine. I finished scraping off the stuff. As you guys can see, there's still some orange pieces, but it's still flat. I might just get like a Scotch-Brite and just rub all that away, but for now it'll be alright. So, actually, you know what? Before I put these on, let's go ahead and talk about spark plug. Here is the old versus the new, and as you guys can see, they're two different sizes. This is 5/8, and this is, I forget what the other spark plug size is, but regardless, it doesn't really, it's just smaller and bigger, whatever. Two most common sizes. This is a little bit longer right here, and that's what we really needed. So I just got these NGK, sorry, V-Power. They're copper plugs. They're just super cheap on Rock Auto. They're like $1 a piece or whatever, so it really wasn't a big deal. So I ordered a 4-pack and a 2-pack. In reality, I should just order 2 4-packs, and I suggest doing that because it's cheaper, and you always have 2 extra just whenever you need it. But anyway, so let's go ahead and pop these in the new ones. Pretty sure the gapping is preset, I believe, but I'm just going to check the gaps, make sure they're all even, and then put them in the heads. They should be just fine like this. We really don't know the gapping. I couldn't find it on the internet of what the engine should be, so I'm just going to kind of leave it, and then we can go back while it's running and just, or after it's run a little bit, and then we can just adjust them as we go. No big deal. So these are the old versus new. So let's go to the head and talk about the main problem of the old ones and how the new ones are actually going to solve the issue that we were having. Alright, so I have my super zooming lens to show you guys what I wanted to talk about spark plugs, choosing the right spark plugs. If you already have the heads off and you don't know what spark plugs to use, here's some things to kind of think about. And see, our old spark plug is way in there. The sparking is past here, and we have not deep dish, but dished pistons. So there is room, so it's not going to come flat or it's not going to come rounded into this void right here. So, you know, of course there's going to be space because the valves need to open, and this spark right here needs to be out where the fuel is compressed. Of course, the fuel is going to be compressed into here. I'm kind of rambling, it's kind of hard to follow, but basically this is bad because you'll have some sediment and kind of carbon deposits inside of these threads right here. Same thing if it's hanging out too far, it'll stick to the threads on the outside. Just imagine if that thread is sticking out. And now if you look over here, it's pretty much flush. It's just a little bit off, but if we tied it down, it'll come pretty much flush. And like I said, we have the pistons that are dished, so it's not going to hit this little metal piece right here on the spark plug. So it's nothing to worry about. And this is the proper spark plug, and this is just the wrong one. Everything is wrong about it. The size, you can't even get the socket in right. So they're all gapped to 0.060. So that's what the internet said. There's a lot of conflicting answers, so I guess we'll just have to see how it goes. Put some anti-seize on the threads here, and here is the code for the spark plugs, just in case you guys are at home and doing the same exact thing. There it is. Rock Auto, they're like $1.30 a piece. Really simple, so I'm going to go ahead and put these in the head, or at least screw them in just a little bit. And then put the head gasket on, put the heads on, and then we're going to talk about lubricating those lifters. Alright, so we're about to, what do we have to do, Dad?
We're about to prime these lifters.
Okay.
And the reason you prime them up, that way you don't hear a whole bunch of chatter when you start the engine, or attempt to start the engine.
Yeah.
Because if you don't prime them up, that little plunger there just stays down and pushes this push rod up, which opens your valves.
Okay.
So what we're planning to do here is you submerge them with the motor oil.
So we're just going to use some super cheap stuff for now.
You know, it's just to pump up the lifters. You don't need to buy super expensive stuff. So what you want to do is submerge them.
Yeah, we just have like a super disposable container. It's like an old Cool Whip container, but you guys can use whatever you want.
What I forgot to tell you was, when you're pumping them up, if I can grab them. Well, so much for the demonstration. There's a little hole here. You'll get air bubbles to come out.
Yeah.
So you get fuel.
So it's like a bleeder type of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So then, how do you do it? You just set them in there, or?
You set them in there. And I'm going to set this down on the floor, so in case I make a serious mistake. And you just...
So you just have a push rod, one of the push rods from the engine here, and we're just pushing down this little top piece right here. That's where the push rod sets, right?
Right.
So it just goes up and down, and then as you go, the air will bleed out and it'll suck in the oil. So do that a few times, and then get them all done, and then we'll just go ahead and drop it into the engine. I'll show you guys that. And yeah, good explanation.
Finally, we're getting somewhere. I don't know if you can see this, but it's a little different. Oh yeah.
So if you guys can see right in there, right between those a bunch of holes, that is the cam. We're just going to drop those lifters in, and those lifters right against the cam. Push the push rod, and the push rod opens the valves, and pretty much that's how the engine works.
Intake and exhaust.
Yeah. So we're going to finish dropping the rest of those in there, and then we have to put the heads on. We already got the gaskets on there. Put those RTV in the corners, as I was talking about a little bit earlier. You guys can see that over there. And so once you do that, we're going to figure out the torque specs for all these, for the head bolts. Probably going to have to take it to the interwebs and figure it out. And once we have that done, we can put on the valley pan gasket in the intake, and then the valve cover. So we'll be doing that shortly. So I have some of this, before I put the heads on, I have some of this Marvel Mystery Oil. And I'm going to put some of this in the pistons right here. And then we're going to cycle the engine, or turn the engine over a few times, just to get everything lubricated. I put some fogging oil in here about a week ago, but I didn't feel really confident in that stuff just yet. So I just put some oil. This is pretty much just, it's literally just oil with the hefty price tag. It's like $4 or something. So I'm just going to pour a couple capfuls into each cylinder, I guess we'll just do 2 for each. And
One should be good.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. One would be fine. Alright, well alright. Breaking my focus, Dad. Now the people are going to laugh at me. Okay. So Dad's just getting a paper towel and just coating the inside of the cylinders with that mystery oil stuff. That's basically all we're doing. We're just lubricating the engine. So on the first crank, it's not super dry, and we don't have
crack rings or
we don't have any premature wear. This engine has been sitting for
a couple of minutes.
A couple minutes. And by a couple minutes, we mean upwards of nearly 20 years. Alright, so just recap what we just said. So we got this turning all properly and well, so it turns really smoothly with the ratchet. You don't need to show them. But, so we got all that, so all the stuff is lubricated, so we don't have to really worry about, piston rings or anything like that. So all that stuff we don't have to worry about. You have a little bit of oil in the cans there. We just poured just a little bit, as well as all of those lifters like we were talking about. And so now we're talking about top dead center. We're going to get this to top dead center so we can drop in the distributor. And so
top dead center would be, this is your number 1 piston.
So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Correct.
7, 8. And
if you had a V8.
If you had a V8. As well as V10, V12, whatever. So we're going to get this one to the very top. And top dead center is what? So it's top dead on the compression stroke, right?
Right.
So how would you tell without the head on? Because we don't have the heads on.
Without the head on, if you got your harmonic balancer all lined up, there's a mark. You got a reference mark on your indicator.
You guys see that white paint right there?
Right,
yeah.
Paint here, at the end of my finger is your indicator tab. Yeah. And it has, what you can't see, it has a bunch of numbers on it to tell you different degrees.
Oh, yeah, they can see it.
But anyway.
Yeah.
And on the harmonic balancer, which is this black piece of metal here, there's a little groove cut in it, and I painted my reference mark, and as you can tell, they're lined up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what are the different numbers mean? So it's your timing, right?
Yeah, you either advanced or retarded.
Okay.
Either if you wanted to plug the fire before top dead center, you'd be advanced.
Advanced, and then afterwards
after be retarded, basically.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so now we're at top dead center, right?
Right.
Okay, so what's important about the top dead center to get that distributor in, there's a keyway. There's a special keyway that goes in, so you can only put it in when it's at top dead center, pretty much. And earlier, it wasn't at top dead center, so we couldn't drop it in. It was still sticking out by about ½ inch or something.
And if it don't fall in, then you just kind of rotate the cap just a little bit.
Yeah. Or if you had the electricals turned on, you could just bump the engine real quick. You just turn the key real quick, and then it'll eventually you'll get to it.
When it drops in, then you will fine tune it by advancing or retarding the assembly before you tighten it down.
Okay, and we'll go over that once we get to that stage. So yeah, so we got all this done. We have all the bolts out here for the head bolts. We're gonna torque this down, put the heads on, and then we'll talk a little bit about the springs, the lift, the rods, and all that stuff, and how it all operates. I think it'd be pretty cool to show you guys how the insides of it works. If you guys have never seen kind of what an engine looks like when the valve covers are off, it's pretty cool. So yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and get to it and assemble the engine. You guys saw it come apart, so it goes back just the opposite. So as I said, I'm gonna go ahead and torque down those bolts. I'm gonna use a trusty torque wrench here. I don't think it's really that accurate anymore. Maybe it's off by a couple percent, maybe like 6 or 7%. But anyways, Craftsman one. I really do need to get one. So if you guys could drop a link, a comment below what is a good torque wrench to get. Probably just gonna end up getting Craftsman again. But if you guys have one that's not Snap-on and one that's not $5 billion, let me know. So the torque spec online says 95. So I'm just gonna do 30, 60, and then 95 as a final. And then, so what you want to do is do it in steps, just kind of like if you're doing a flywheel. And this is so you don't warp the head, or if you're doing the flywheel. If you warp the head, so if you torque down the back two, torque down the front two, and you kind of do a weird order, there's a possibility where you could twist and turn the head, the surface of the head, and you'll have leaks, you'll have problems. So what you want to do is want to go from a pattern from the pretty much inside out and do kind of a crisscross. So like do this one, this one, this one, this one, this back and forth. You're gonna see the order when I show you the time lapse. But I'm just gonna do 30, 60, and then final torque 95. When you're torquing down these head bolts and any bolts that go into the engine, a good practice is to put some grease on the bottom of the head so you can get a proper torque. Because the friction between this little lip, this bottom lip of the head of the bolt against any metal surface will create that friction, will create and sometimes a inaccurate torque. So just grease that up a little bit. A false. That's inaccuracy. Oh man, yeah, whatever. Some people put assembly lube on the threads, but I don't really like that. But yeah, I'm just gonna get some of my lifetime supply of grease here, and just real easy, just put it on the some grease. Yeah, just some grease right there. And I'm going to do that for the rest of the bolts here. For this engine, there are 4 really long ones, and then the rest of them are all the same size, same pitch, and everything. These 2 are the most inwards inside of the head, I guess I'm going to say it. There are bolts on the outside, like if you put the valve cover on, there's 4 on the outside and then 4 on the inside. You guys will see. It's kind of hard to explain really, but yeah, I'm just going to grease all these up, and then I'll show you guys the torquing pattern. Dad just finished snugging them up. It's really easy to do with the ratchet instead of just using the torque wrench. That'll take forever. So like I said, we're going to do, it's the final torque is 95 foot-pounds. So we're going to do 30, 60, and then 95. And the tightening pattern you kind of want to do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's like a crisscross, kind of like when you're tightening wheels. It's just making sure it's even. So now I'm going to set the final torque, which is 95 foot-pounds. I'm going to set to 96. This thing is a little inaccurate. Alright. Alright. Woo! That's my workout for the day.
The reason it keeps changing the sockets because they're different bolt heads.
The 2 on the inside are a little bit longer, and the heads are just a tiny bit bigger. Alright, so now that they're at their final torque, I'm just going to go through them all and kind of just check if they're all good. Sometimes as you tighten all the other bolts, the other ones come just a little bit loose. Alright, so now this side is done. So I'm going to go ahead and do this side. It's going to be a little complicated because this back bolt way back over here is going to suck. So, but I'm going to check in with you guys when I get the two sides on and it's time to put the rods in and the rockers. So we're going to put those rods in. First, before you do that, put a little damn grease on. Stab it in the grease and drop it. My guy.
I don't want to plug up the hole. The grease hole. The top of the...
Oh, then just flip it around. The grease goes on the top. That's what I was kind of saying.
Oh. Well, you're going to put a little dab on them because they're going to stick up.
Ah, okay. Okay, Dad. So you win this time, brother. I took it apart, dog.
You should remember that, huh?
Yeah. Alright, so we're just dropping them in. They're all the same length, so really no trick to it.
No trick to it, except you just got drop it in the right hole.
Need some reach. Alright, so those are the rods. As you guys see, they go into those.
The lifter, the back pocket.
The lifter will focus. There you go. And those are what we just oiled, as you guys saw earlier. And they stick out here. Now we're going to get those rocker arms.
As the mechanics say.
Dropped it on there. And there's a little divot where the rod goes into, so it fits perfectly. So you just put a little bit of grease there just to lubricate it for now. You might need
the screws.
Yeah, of course. We're going to torque those down real quick. We're also going to do the other side over there. And then we're going to show you guys how it kind of all works if we turn the engine while the valve covers are off so you guys can see kind of the motion.
I don't know if you can hear this, but...
Yeah, they can probably hear it. So that's pretty much just like kind of like the air and stuff kind of cycling through. So if you have that sound, if you don't have the sound, then you probably don't have any compression, which is bad, or you don't have your spark plugs in or something. So as you guys can see, you can see the rocker arms kind of moving up and down right there. Now they're saying this is the exhaust one right here, this is the intake, and clearly because you can see because the holes line up over there, and those are where the valves are, obviously. So you said top dead center is what on compression stroke?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do that, and then we're going to show you what that looks like. Mosquitoes are out to play, and we don't play that game today. So all we have to do is put back on the intake, valve cover, and then we're going to drop in the distributor tomorrow. Alright, it is the next day, and as you guys can see, I already got to work. It's a little bit cloudy today, but I got to work removing the old valve cover gaskets. They're made out of cork, and if you guys like cork gaskets, then you deserve a special place. And no, but seriously, it's kind of annoying because it just kept breaking up into small pieces, and I had to get the Scotch-Brite out. And anyway, so I replaced that gasket also with a rubber gasket, as you guys saw. So all I have left is to put in the valley pan gasket as well as the intake. So we're going to talk about valley pan gaskets here. So this is the old one right here. Just straight up metal. This one is the new one, kind of a rubbery, but also metal on the inside, I guess. There's rubbery outside material. Here is the part number. Should be, I think, that. This is a Felpro right here. I guess it's this number. MS96037. So this is This is called a valley pan gasket because when it's in, it looks like a valley, obviously. Some engines just use kind of just one strip. They don't use the valley pan. They just kind of use a more conventional style with the strips. And yeah, so that's pretty much all there is to it. So there are tabs that pop in right here, 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 and here. Hopefully you guys can see that and I'm not in the way. Alright, so now that's in place. I'm going to go ahead and get that intake and set it on there. Make sure these wires are out of the way. And like earlier, like with the heads, you'll need to do a torquing sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just kind of in a crisscross. You guys saw it when I was doing the head. And same thing applies to the intake. Torque to spec. And then we can actually move on from spark plugs and then drop in the distributor. Alright, so fast forward about 2 afternoons, I just kind of went in and just grinded out, putting everything back together. Since you guys saw it all come apart, to be honest, it's kind of boring. I did a few things. I made a bracket to hold in the oil dipstick right there, put in the oil filter, kind of just did a bunch of small things, put the accessories back on, did a few things back there, painted that red, and we also dropped in the distributor. But yeah, so everything's back together, kind of. And so next episode we need to put the hoses on, the AC, all the accessories wired up, put the fan in, radiator. We're trying to get that cooling system all knocked out, as well as we still have to make the brackets for the throttle and kick down. But that won't take that long. And after that, we should probably be ready to maybe start. Sorry, the camera cut out. My video or my memory card ran out. So, but I didn't talk about anything after that. So, pretty much that would be the end of this Skylark video. There'll be another one in a couple weeks or maybe next week if you're lucky. But anyways, that'll be it. So give it a like if you liked it. Comment below anything, questions or concerns or comments. I answer pretty much every comment. I read every one. And subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. So with that, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Peace.